live and in person. Let's give a very warm welcome to our director, Nancy Savoca. So that clip kind of, I feel like, sets up something that I know we want to touch on, that you touched on in your intro, which is the fact that we're all able to be here today to watch this restoration. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that journey, which I know is a very surprising one.
Yes. So Household Saints, like many movies of their time, and this was released in '93, was released on VHS once it's had its theatrical run. But when the technology changed and films started being released in DVD, this is one of the many, many movies that did not make that transition. And so at that point, it started being less available. And which is sad for filmmakers, you can imagine. But Rich and I, my partner Richard Gay and I, were very grateful that there were 2 prints at UCLA Film Archives that were preserved for us. But then in 2018, Ira Deutschman, who was at Fine Line, the people who made the film, asked if we had a print that he could screen for his class at Columbia. And so we went to UCLA, and they looked at both prints, and both prints were damaged so severely that they could not be screened. So we went from thinking we had 2 prints to not having anything. And so we did a search for prints, couldn't find them, checked, Warner Brothers had purchased Fine Line, checked the vaults, they had nothing. Not only did they have nothing, they found out they didn't own the movie anymore. So not only did we not have any materials for it, we didn't know who owned it. That was quite a long journey of several years. And we finally were able to locate the elements, we're able to locate the rights, we're able to have Milestone Films as distributors, Kino Lorber as distributor. All of the pieces started falling together. But during that search of those years, I could tell you, I never for a moment could imagine this moment that I'm here. So I am so grateful to be here, and so grateful you guys are here to watch it. And before we get into further, I do have, because I have to say that there are some people here that worked on the movie, and I just want to point out that Kalina Ivanov is here, so if just like my production designer. And next to her, Cameron Wiesel, who is our set decorator. Peter Newman, our producer, along with Richard of the movie. Ira Deutschman is here, who had the movie, helped us make the movie, and then helped us refine the movie. Ira. Our wonderful attorney, Sue Bodine, who is just a part of my life all the time, part of my family, too. Yes, and of course, you know, our wonderful distributors and the wonderful people at Lightbox in Philadelphia, and Suzanne and Ron Naples that helped us do the restoration with their funding, and we're just thrilled.
Yeah, it's a family movie and a family effort to be here.
Yeah.
Since we, in thinking about the crew that you have sitting out there, and production designer, set designer, I was wondering maybe we could talk about the making of the film a little bit, and the fact, maybe you could tell us where it was shot and what that entailed.
So if you can imagine, 1993, we had the challenge of having Little Italy, filming in Little Italy from 1940s into the 70s. So no way were we going to be able to take over that whole neighborhood and, get rid of all the businesses and put typical, correct time era stuff. So we ended up doing a search and found out that at that time it was called Chronicle Studios. They had a Lower East Side set that they had built for Year of the Dragon in 1984. So we were there like 10 years later. The only thing is we were there 10 years later, which meant that that set was kind of falling apart. So if you ever see some interesting camera moves during this movie, some of them are artistic decisions, and some of them are like, avoid the tree growing out of that, first floor, tenement building.
And I know we got to see in the video Francine Prose. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about discovering the source material, which is, I know, so important, and it's such a rich thing to turn into a film.
Well, yeah, thank you, Francine, for coming up with that one. I don't think I could have ever imagined this story. I was in film school, actually. I was doing an internship where I was reading material and maybe making recommendations for children's films. It was a children's film production company. And I read Household Saints, and I went, oh, there's kids here, and this would make an amazing movie. And then Rich, who at the time was watching me do this, he was like, Nancy, it's not a children's film. So, but I wrote like a, I don't know, long 5-page, explanation of why this would make a great film. And I ended up writing Francine a love letter saying how much I loved the novel and saying, I'm in film school now. It was a very nerdy love letter, but I'm in film school now, and one day I'm going to make this movie. But 10 years later, it happened.
I'm sure that everyone sitting in this theater will agree with me that the performances in this film are incredible. And I feel like we could spend an hour on every single person. So I'd love for you to talk about the cast, maybe starting with Lili Taylor, who I know you worked with previously on Dogfight, and who, for me, every time I watch this film, I'm just in awe of what she does on screen.
I mean, the only word that I come up with is luminous, like she shines. Like there's, from the get-go, there's something, and it just, the light grows and grows. And I don't know how she does that. And of course, you shoot out of sequence, so I don't know how she did this progressive glow that gets you at the end. I had worked with her on Dogfight, and even during the shooting, I knew we had this script that we were hoping to make, and I talked to her about it, and she's pretty fearless. Like, she jumps in. I knew she was just going to jump headfirst and go very deeply into the character.
And, if you want to talk a little bit about everyone else, I think for me, Tracey Ullman was a discovery too, because she's playing against the type that I grew up, the Tracey Ullman I understood growing
Tracey
up.
Ullman show, yes, the skit comedy. She really embodied this character, and she did a study. Each actor is so different in their approach, and that's one of the joys, I think, of working as a director, is that you just get to become whatever that actor needs. So some actors basically just go off and do stuff, and you need to feed them little bits of information. Some actors need you to walk with them and talk all the way through. And Tracey was very much about looking for information. I took her to the Bronx. I introduced her to a bunch of ladies, and then she ended up stealing my accent. So, who knew?
I'm curious. I read that quote from you from when the film came out, and we of course saw the film you made 10 years prior, Renata. Which again, let's give a big, I think, applause for Renata. Because I think it's
Sight and Sound New York at NYU, where they give you the black and white film and say shoot black and white, So I did.
But in thinking about, what does independent film mean to you today? We're it's what, 30?
Yeah, 31 years. It's 31 years, probably this month. I think I still feel very strongly that it is when I know that somebody's there telling me the story, that there's somebody there. And that I feel like as an audience member, I'm having a conversation with them, in a way, and I think that's really sad. They make me work a little harder. The information doesn't come out of dialogue; it comes out of observation of the audience, and I don't know. You just take it. You're going along for a ride, but it's active. It's very active, I think.
And I feel like we got a sense of this because of how you kind of came out here and everyone you thanked, but it takes a lot of support to make and to be able to use your voice. It's not just a solo effort. And I'm curious how you have mixed the people who've worked with you and family and the balance of all of those things throughout your career.
Totally out of
and
balance.
With this film.
You never get balance. You just don't get balance. So you go like this. You go like that. You go like weebles wobbles, but they don't fall over. You just keep coming back. You just keep trying to come back to some kind of balance. But it's constantly moving you, and it's very. I feel like whenever, especially if we're in production, I feel like it's very much like it could get stormy. Things kind of really just sway you, and you just need to find the people that and check in with them and hold on.
We've talked not in this theater, but outside of this theater a few times now, and each time I feel like we've come across this idea of how people watch movies today and where people watch movies today, which, it's great. It's wonderful that things are being restored and that films are being brought back out into the world. But I think everyone here would be I would love to hear you talk about your idea of neighborhood cinema, because I think it's really important.
I'm saying it to everybody here in the whole festival. Every time I meet somebody, you know what I'm obsessed with? Like bringing movie theaters back into neighborhoods, but not just one neighborhood, like all neighborhoods. Wouldn't that be like, because then you can go visit neighborhoods of, like, say, I go to Queens all the time, and if I want to see Indian cinema, like, go to the Indian neighborhood in Queens and watch it there, with an audience of people who really get it, and then you'll be learning and feeling things differently, maybe. I just have really great memories of being a little kid and being dragged to the movies by my sisters who were teenagers at the time, and I think my first movie might have been I Want to Hold Your Hand, and it's like they sat me there, and I swear there were several showings, and we didn't leave the theater, and we just sat there, and the girls were screaming in the audience, and the elevated train was like right outside the theater in the Bronx, and it was just like an earthquake, and it was very exciting. So I think movie theaters and watching in theaters as one of the options of what to do this weekend.
I feel like maybe everyone here would agree that it would be nice to not take the subway sometimes to get to the movie
Seriously.
theater.
And to have like movies that might appeal to your community, and begin there, and just, it exists, and the technology exists. So I say all these vacant storefronts, pop-up cinema. That's what I say. And I know you guys love movies, so I can say, we're in family here. You know what I'm talking about.
And speaking of our audience and audiences in general, I would love to make sure I open it up to questions to you guys. Right there. First hand I saw. You.
Okay, so my name is Nancy, just like you. And I was telling this gentleman over here, who I do not know, that I went into labor the day my husband and I were heading to see your movie.
Oh my God, like this.
And all of my friends from Little Italy say, Nancy, you gotta go see that movie. You gotta go see that movie. You're gonna love it. And I never got to see it until today.
I'm so happy for you. So cool.
And growing up a Catholic school girl, I really, really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for bringing it back to complete my life.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. So your daughter's about a year young. Your child is about a year younger than my daughter, who is the director of that little clip. We have a 1-hour documentary on the making, the behind the scenes. And Martina is also here. Please say Martina.
Okay, I know we have a very enthusiastic hand way in the back. So if we could bring them a mic.
Thank you so much for this wonderful picture. I wasn't in labor when the movie was made, but I still enjoyed it very much. And I guess my question sort of stems from your reflections at the beginning of the movie when you said this is like a kind of resurrected film, and you've talked several times today about the way in which you're kind of seeing your past self again in various ways. And I guess that context makes me think of that one image where the brother is holding the radio like a cross on his. And I thought your film was so rich with metaphors like that, like this kind of secular cross this man is bearing because of his desire. And so my question is, there's a part of me that just wants to say, like, what about that wonderful shot? But to try to be a bit more, I don't know if interesting, but reflective. How has it been like watching like images like that? And do you discover new metaphors in this movie and new kind of feelings and sentiments, seeing your past self's vision? Can you talk a little bit about that experience of reflection for us?
Yeah, it was actually very emotional to watch it. I actually watched it during the restoration. So we saw some of the work had already been done, and then we were doing like some details and stuff. And This story was so special to me anyway. It felt very, very personal. Probably maybe than most of anything else I've done. I mean, there's always parts of stuff, but this one very much so. So to come back and see it again, I actually was, I was surprised. I related to it older. The older me related to it different, with this understanding of losses I've had and, things I've felt over the years. So I actually brought more stuff as an audience member to it too, which is, the fun part about seeing a film, the things you're bringing to it, which is why all you people here, you're all seeing a different movie, maybe, Thank you.
The gentleman right there.
So Rich and I, we work differently. We've co-written a lot of movies together, but each one happens differently. This one was a novel that I had read, and so I took the first pass at it and came out with a draft of a script that was longer than the novel. So, and Rich is like, no, can't shoot this. I can't raise money for this. So he basically went in there, and I did call him the butcher, and he did slash all these scenes out that we really didn't need and stuff. And it was good because then it was brought back to me with here's a workable plan. And then we started going in deeper with the scenes that we had. The thing that was so odd about the story is the thing I absolutely love that I think is in the film too, is that it's kind of two movies. First you have the guy who wins the wife in a card game, and you find out, and then Tracey's character and what she's going through, and Judith Malina, who's killer, and I'm relating more to Judith Malina these days. But and then when it goes to Lili, it could be a separate film, and that was one of the challenges we had and raising money, was some people wanted to make the first movie and some people wanted to make the second movie, but nobody wanted to make the whole movie until we got to Fine Line. So.
And on the note, we have to wrap up, which is a huge bummer, but on the note of Rich and family, I know you wanted to end the screening a certain way.
I do, but I quickly want to say that the one thing I did leave out, I'm going to talk real fast, is that because we had all these issues with the missing film, we did start a group knowing that so many other people have the same issues, called Missing Movies, where we're hoping to educate young filmmakers and filmmakers whose movies have been lost to figure out how to find them and give you guys advice to keep your eye on these movies, because they will disappear if we don't take care of them. So thank you. Missingmovies.org. Write it down, Missing Movies, kind of easy to remember.